Hi there and welcome to West Valley Quilting's channel, Quilt Till You Wilt. Today we're going to talk about how to create half rectangle triangles, HRTs. They're very similar to a half square triangle, but the construction is a little bit more tricky, and you may want some specialty tools to help you be accurate. And so we're going to explore those tools today. We have the Creative Grids ruler set. We've got the perfect rectangle, triangle ruler to cut out your pieces, and then we've got the half rectangle trim tool for trimming down. We also are going to look at the Bloc lock. So they've got their half rectangle triangle set, comes with A and B, and we're going to look at how those work for trimming up. And then I have the newest player in the market right now is the HuRTy1, and this is an all-in-one. You use this to cut your pieces and to trim after you've sewn them together. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I have pre-cut my fabrics today. I'm using a Quilters Select ruler with the grippy so it doesn't slip. I've cut these strips here are 10 inches. We're going to use those to create our rectangles. And then for the Creative Grids, it calls for a little bit smaller because we're going to be using the perfect rectangle triangle. And so this is a 9.5 inch strip. And I'm just going to double check the measurement on this. So this piece is 9.5 by 8.5. So that's perfect. This calls for a 9.5 inch tall strip. So I've got layered here my two different colors so that you can see how they're going to turn out. So you can see the two different sides when they come out. You use the same tool to do a left facing or a right slanting triangle. So face up is how I'm going to do this today. I'm going to line this up on here. Then I'm just going to cut. Don't do that at home. And then it's got the nice little angles here, so you can be able to line your triangles up. Okay, so then when we take these apart, flip them around, and these are going to line up perfectly. Just like that. So then we're going to stitch at 1/4 inch, press it open, and we'll be ready to trim. Okay, so here we are. I've sewn and pressed. You can see how nice and crisp this is. Everything lined up just right. And so now I'm ready to trim. So with this trim tool, the largest rectangle that you're going to be able to make is a 4 inch by 8, and that's a 2-to-1 ratio. Most tools that are out there are made for that because that's the most common ratio for a 2-to-1. Okay, so on your ruler, there's a left slant and a right slant. Unlike half square triangles, you can't just turn these around and have them slant the other direction. If you cut a left slanting triangle, it's always going to be a left slanting triangle. If you cut a right slanting, it's always going to be a right slanting, unlike a square. So I have a left slanting triangle. So all I'm going to do is I line up this center line with my seam, Now I've done mine bigger because I'd rather trim and waste than to be short and not have enough to work with, because I'm not a perfect sewist, piecer. So maybe with practice you could use less fabric for the same job, but I'm going to go ahead and trim. So we're just trimming. Okay, and to get this last side, I'm going to have to turn it around, line my edges back up here. So you see my dotted line is on my previous cut line. My center line lines up here. And then we cut. Now keep the camera down there for a minute. I want you to notice here we've got just about 1/4 inch of excess here. You're not cutting these point to point like you would on a half square triangle. You need this extra seam allowance, this extra allowance here, to be able to line your pieces up when you go to piece them together. And that's the secret. Most people who would go to and not have read instructions or had any teaching, you'd think cut and sew right point to point, but that's not the case with the half rectangle triangle. And so that's the Creative Grids, the Creative Grids tools. These are nice. They've got some non-stick. If you're looking, maybe I'm not really brand specific when I'm shopping. I've learned to use all the tools that come out, but the Creative Grids, this is theirs. Quilters Select also has their same set of tools. So whichever brand you like, it's available, works the same way. Okay, next we're going to make some half rectangle triangles, and then we're going to use the Bloc lock tool to trim them down. And for this, I'm going to make both a left slant and a right slant, just so we can try out both rulers. They're identical, but okay. So for this, I'm going to start with a 10-inch strip. Okay, so I've got the 10 inches. I'm not quite straight here on this side, so I'm going to trim that up real quick. Make that a little cleaner. Okay, so we're going to cut this strip 10 inches by 5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 10, 5. I'm going to do 2 of these so we can do left and right. Okay, now I've cut, since we've got the 10 inches, we've got plenty of room so we can just cut point to point. So on this one, we're going to cut left slanting. And on the second one, we're going to cut right slanting. So if your pattern called for 20 rectangles and they want half of them to be left slanting and half of them to be right slanting, you're going to have to cut 10 each way. Once you cut them, there's no way to change it. Okay. So we've got enough to make 1, 2 right facing or slanting and 2 left. Okay. These are not going to be perfectly lined up when you make them. Okay, you're gonna hang off a little, and that's okay. Okay. What have I done? Okay. All right, so now we're going to sew with our 1/4 inch and press, and then we'll come back and trim. Okay, so here are our 4 HRTs, half rectangle triangles, and you can see these don't, I mean, these are still, they've been ironed, they're crisp. I got a pretty straight seam. You've got your little dog ears that you're going to have to trim off, but they're made large enough that that's not going to be a problem. So we're going to start with our left slanting. This is Bloc Lock A. And the largest that you can make on this is going to be 8.5 by 4.5. So this is easy if you've used Bloc Lock before. It has the channel in the back. The channel hooks right on your seam allowance there, and it doesn't go anywhere. So you can slide it back and forth. It stays in that channel and makes trimming very nice. So if you have a rotating cutting board, that would make this really easy. So I'm going to trim here, trim across here. And then I'm going to rotate. Line my cuts back up. Looks good. And then we'll cut down the other side. Okay, so how does it look? So you've got, just like this other one, you've got your little bit here. You're not going corner to corner. You've got your little bit of excess there. Let me do this other one real quick. Line up my cutting edges. Get my dog ear down here. Okay. So there we go. 2 very nice half rectangle triangles to add to my stack. Okay. And then we're going to change now to the right facing. Same concept. Did you see I don't have that lined up in the channel, and there's nothing to trim, right? Because it's not on there correctly. Okay, so we've got that in the channel. There's not as much waste on this one. And then we're gonna rotate this around. When you rotate your fabric around your shape, you have to rotate your ruler around too. Line that up. Trim. Okay, again. Line up my channel. Rotate. Line up your cutting edges. And trim. Okay. So there we go. So I think that that this is, they have nice directions, shows you how they work. If you're already using Bloc to trim your half square triangles, then this is going to come very intuitively to you, and that might be a good choice for you. Okay, so the last tool we're going to work with today is the HuRTy1 ruler. This is the newest one on the market. It does multiple sizes of HRTs and the 1:2 ratio, which is pretty standard, and then the 1:6 ratio, which is used to get the longer legs on the stars. Nice colorful instructions, nice colorful ruler with the cutting and trimming lines in black and orange, so it's easy to read. It is not non-stick. That would be the only feature that would be nice to have, would be for it to be non-stick. It does have a higher learning curve, a tougher learning curve, but Latifah has made that easy. She's got the QR code, so you can scan it and go to her website where she has very thorough training videos on how to use it. And so once your eyes get used to the ruler and your brain gets wrapped around the cutting chart, it makes very nice HRTs and very accurate. So for my cutting, I'm looking at the cutting chart and I'm going to make a 4x8 for a set of 4x8 HRTs. And so I have pre-cut my fabric here so that I'm 9 inches by 5 3/4, and that'll give us a set of triangles, and we're going to do left slanting. So there's orange. We're going to flip this over so we're looking at the start side. This is A start, and there's the orange cutting guide. I'm going to line that up with the edge of my fabric, like so. And then there's this orange arrow. So I'm going to line it up just like that. And then cut. Okay. So then I flip my ruler over, line it up here. My orange arrow is already lined up. And trim. Okay. So I've got 2 sets. Now you could have a very long strip of fabric all cut to 9 inches, and you could just keep rotating and go right down the fabric to make multiple sets, but we just did the 2 today. So I'm going to go ahead and, so then you flip. Line these up. So So I'm just kind of lining it up. So you've got the little triangle here that matches the little triangle about that size here. Okay, because I know that there's plenty of room to trim. She does on the ruler, you'll see she has these little shapes that you can line up and cut the angles if you like to have them perfect, but I'm going to do it this way. So now we have the two half rectangle triangles. Okay. Now we're going to switch to using the trim line, which is in black. So all the cutting is in orange and all the trimming is in black. And it's got a mark on here for a 4" by 8" HRT. So I just line my cutting seam, my sewn seam up with the seam line, and I kind of slide it up and down until it looks, you know, like it's going to be nice and even. I have to leave room to trim the other side, so got that lined up. My seam is not quite straight, so I trim across here, then I trim down the side, then I'm going to flip. Okay, so I'm lining my corner up with the 4 by 8 here, and then trim the second side. Oh, did you see it wiggled? It cut my. Oh. All right, so second try here. Line up our seam line. Did a better job on this one. This one's straight, so I was paying better attention. Okay, cut. Okay. Rotate the fabric, don't rotate the ruler. Line back up your seam. And cut. Okay. All right. Two, they're exactly the same. They look very nice. They turned out with their little, you've got your allowance here. So very nice looking triangles and consistent from the last time I did it. So that's that. Like I said, there is a little bit of a learning curve, but overall, for the flexibility, I really like this tool. And then I like the Bloc for trimming because that's just what I'm used to. But you've got lots of options, and that's okay. So that wraps up what we wanted to cover today. Brief introduction to HRTs, and we'll see you next time.